Chapter 28 of the Talisman. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Lizzie Driver. The Talisman by Sir Walter Scott. Chapter 28. Heard ye the din of battle bray, lance to lance and horse to horse. Gray. It had been agreed, on account of the heat of the climate, that the judicial combat, which was the cause of the present assemblage of various nations at the Diamond of the Desert, should take place at 1 hour after sunrise. The wide lists, which had been constructed under the inspection of the Knight of the Leopard, enclosed a space of hard sand, which was 120 yards long by 40 in width. They extended in length from north to south, so as to give both parties the equal advantage of the rising sun. Saladin's royal seat was erected on the western side of the enclosure, just in the centre, where the combatants were expected to meet in mid-encounter. Opposed to this was a galley with closed casements, so contrived that the ladies, for whose accommodation it was erected, might see the fight, without being themselves exposed to view. At either extremity of the lists was a barrier, which could be opened or shut at pleasure. Thrones had also been erected, but the Archduke, perceiving that his was lower than King Richard's, refused to occupy it, and Coeur de Lion, who would have submitted to much ere any formality should have interfered with the combat, readily agreed that the sponsors, as they were called, should remain on horseback during the fight. At one extremity of the lists were placed the followers of Richard, and opposed to them were those who accompanied the defender Conrad. Around the throne destined for the Soldan were ranged his splendid Georgian guards, and the rest of the enclosure was occupied by Christian and Mohammedan spectators. Long before daybreak, the lists were surrounded by an even larger number of Saracens than Richard had seen on the preceding evening. When the first ray of the sun's glorious orb arose above the desert, the sonorous call, "To prayer, to prayer," was poured forth by the Soldan himself, and answered by others, whose rank and zeal entitled them to act as muezzins. It was a striking spectacle to see them all sink to earth, for the purpose of repeating their devotions, with their faces turned to Mecca. But when they arose from the ground, the sun's rays, now strengthening fast, seemed to confirm the Lord of Gilsland's conjecture of the night before. They were flashed back from many a spearhead, for the pointless lances of the preceding day were certainly no longer such. De Vaux pointed it out to his master, who answered with impatience that he had perfect confidence in the good faith of the Soldan, but if De Vaux was afraid of his bulky body, he might retire. Soon after this the noise of timbrels was heard, at the sound of which the whole Saracen cavaliers threw themselves from their horses and prostrated themselves, as if for a second morning prayer. This was to give an opportunity to the Queen, with Edith and her attendants, to pass from the pavilion to the gallery intended for them. 50 guards of Saladin's seraglio escorted them with naked sabres, whose orders were to cut to pieces whomsoever, were he prince or peasant, should venture to gaze on the ladies as they passed, or even presume to raise his head until the cessation of the music should make all men aware that they were lodged in their gallery, not to be gazed on by the curious eye. Their superstitious observance of oriental reverence to the fair sex called forth from Queen Berengaria some criticisms very unfavourable to Saladin and his country. But their den, as the royal fair called it, being securely closed and guarded by the sable attendants, she was under the necessity of contenting herself with seeing, and laying aside for the present the still more exquisite pleasure of being seen. Meantime the sponsors of both champions went, as was their duty, to see that they were duly armed and prepared for combat. The Archduke of Austria was in no hurry to perform this part of the ceremony, having had rather an unusually severe debauch upon wine of Shiraz the preceding evening. But the Grand Master of the Temple, more deeply concerned in the event of the combat, was early before the tent of Conrad of Montserrat. To his great surprise, the attendants refused him admittance. "Do you not know me, ye knaves?" said the Grand Master in great anger. "We do, most valiant and reverend," answered Conrad's squire. "But even you may not at present enter. The Marquis is about to confess himself." "Confess himself!" exclaimed the Templar, in a tone where alarm mingled with surprise and scorn. "And to whom, I pray thee?" "My master bid me be secret," said the squire, on which the Grand Master pushed past him, and entered the tent almost by force. The Marquis of Montserrat was kneeling at the feet of the hermit of Engaddi, and in the act of beginning his confession. "What means this, Marquis?" said the Grand Master. "Up, for shame! Or, if you must needs confess, am I not here?" "I have confessed to you too often already," replied Conrad, with a pale cheek and a faltering voice. "For God's sake, Grand Master, begone, and let me unfold my conscience to this holy man." "In what way is he holier than I am?" said the Grand Master. "Hermit, prophet, madman, say, if thou darest, in what thou excellest me." "Bold and bad man," replied the hermit, "know that I am like the lattice window, and the divine light passeth through to avail others, though, alas, it helpeth not me. Thou art like the iron stanchions, which neither receive light themselves nor communicate it to any one." "Prate not to me, but depart from this tent," said the Grand Master. "The Marquis shall not confess this morning, unless it be to me, for I part not from his side." "Is this your pleasure?" said the hermit to Conrad. "For think not I will obey that proud man, if you continue to desire my assistance." "Alas," said Conrad irresolutely, "what would you have me say? Farewell for a while. We will speak anon." "Oh, procrastination!" exclaimed the hermit. "Thou art a soul murderer. Unhappy man, farewell. Not for a while, but until we shall both meet no matter where. And for thee," he added, turning to the Grand Master, "tremble!" "Tremble!" replied the Templar contemptuously. "I cannot if I would." The hermit heard not his answer, having left the tent. "Come, to this gear hastily," said the Grand Master, "since thou wilt needs go through this foolery. Hark thee, I think I know most of thy frailties by heart, so we may omit the detail, which may be somewhat a large one, and begin with the absolution. What signifies counting the spots of dirt that we are about to wash from our hands?" "Knowing what thou art thyself," said Conrad, "it is blasphemous to speak of pardoning another." "That is not according to the canon, Lord Marquis," said the Templar. "Thou art more scrupulous than orthodox. The absolution of the wicked priest is as effectual as if he were himself a saint otherwise. God help the poor penitent. What wounded man inquires whether the surgeon that tends his gashes has clean hands or no? Come, shall we to this toy?" "No," said Conrad. "I will rather die unconfessed than mock the sacrament." "Come, noble Marquis," said the Templar, "rouse up your courage, and speak not thus. In an hour's time thou shalt stand victorious in the lists, or confess thee in thy helmet like a valiant knight." "Alas, Grand Master," answered Conrad, "augurs ill for this affair the strange discovery by the instinct of the dog, the revival of this Scottish knight, who comes into the lists like a spectre, all betokens evil." "Pshaw!" said the Templar. "I have seen thee bend thy lance boldly against him in sport, and with equal chance of success. Think thou art but in a tournament, and who bears him better in the tilt yard than thou? Come, squires and armourers, your master must be accoutred for the field." The attendants entered accordingly, and began to arm the Marquis. "What morning is without?" said Conrad. "The sun rises dimly," answered a squire. "Thou seest, Grand Master," said Conrad, "naught smiles on us." "Thou wilt fight the more coolly, my son," answered the Templar. "Thank Heaven that hath tempered the sun of Palestine to suit thine occasion." Thus jested the Grand Master,